regular business meeting of the Newmarket School Board. We were a bit delayed because our budget work session went a little bit longer than scheduled because we had some excellent public comment and a lot of people here to talk. We wanted to give them time to share their feelings on the budget, and so now we're beginning the regular business meeting. And we will begin this meeting as we do all others with the Pledge of Allegiance. Catherine, if you could lead us, I would appreciate it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, as the group of folks that were here in the audience before have left because the budget meeting has concluded, we will move past public comment and straight to the student report. Catherine, if you'd like to proceed with your report, that would be great.
In the high school, members of Student Council, SALT, and NHS ended up collecting over 2,100 canned goods.
Great.
Oh, good.
Great.
And we are still running a sock drive for Families First in Portsmouth if people are willing to send along new pairs of socks.
Yeah.
The improv show is tomorrow night from 7 to 9, and that'll be in the music room. Project Graduation Bingo will be at the school Saturday, November 18th, so in 2 days from 12 to 3. Thanksgiving break starts next week, so there will be no school the 22nd, 23rd, or 24th. And the freshman class is still running their online Yankee candle fundraiser if anyone would like to help with that. For sports, they're in between seasons right now, so swimming and diving, basketball, hockey, and indoor track meets will be starting in December. That's it.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I got up at 4:30 this morning to get my daughter to UNH Bowl, and kids love that program, by the way, so far anyways.
At 4:30 in the
We'll see
morning, they loved it?
how many 5 o'clock practices. Good.
That is great. One thing, and Meredith's probably gonna go into this, but I wanted to highlight our next school budget workshop, which is Monday, the 20th at 7, for us to delve more deeply into the budget and adopt it very possibly. So that's gonna happen next Monday. And then our next, regular business meeting is December 7th at this point, which seems a little bit crazy. Are there any other calendar highlights that anyone has?
Should, we discussed this earlier, now we're down to the wire, but is the 20th going to be enough? Should we look at the 25th, but people might be away for vacation on Thanksgiving?
I will be away.
Yeah.
I think we had previously discussed Saturday, the 18th.
Right. So should we, did you post it?
We still could.
Yes,
I mean, how does everybody feel about that? Or do you want to get through this and then discuss it, or?
I think we should probably talk about it now.
I mean, I kind of feel like I've got a good handle on the issues in the budget. And we've gone through it. Have we missed any part of the budget as yet?
As far as I'm aware, no.
So all the presentations have been made, and
The last two were made.
I don't think there was any requests for additional information. So I don't see the need to.
Would it make sense, if we don't add Saturday, to maybe start, I don't even know if the staff would be available for this, but start at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock as opposed to 7 to build a little more time? Would that make any difference, Elizabeth?
On the 20th, I also have the Seacoast School of Technology that starts at 5. So
Budget
7 o'clock
adoption
worked
is
well for me.
scheduled for that
Yeah.
night.
That's right. Well, no, we'll do it if that's it, we'll just discuss it on the 20th, and if we just run the gamut, right, see what happens. That's,
Okay. Let's.
unless anybody else has anything to say.
You know, as far as financial, other information, I just brought out information he had asked for.
On benefits.
On the sorts, on the benefits, but I don't know if there's any.
I think that was it.
If there are other questions
anything
or
else
information
that
that you
we-
need, please let us know.
I mean, I think that one of the things that I would like to see is if we chose not to, it's a multiple step process. You know, what are the implications with each specific recommendation that's been made? That might help me determine and I don't know if that's even something that's possible, but what are the specific implications for each of the decisions fiscally and the impact? I don't know if that's too much to ask for, but, and that,
I certainly can provide that. I guess I would just ask that if maybe the board wants to send questions
Okay.
To us, and then we can make sure that information is available
For Monday.
before Monday.
okay,
Um,
that would be perfect.
That's a great idea.
That's a good idea.
That's
Yeah.
a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, and then that way we can address them and then
Yep.
take it from there.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Any other calendar items, assuming that, the budget committee presentation of the school budget is on the 4th, if I'm reading this correctly, at 7 o'clock.
Yes, they'll receive the budget on the 27th, and the intended initial proposal to
Okay.
them is December 4th.
All right, Meredith, would you like to go into your report?
Sure. Since our last meeting, Talent Night was actually held at the high school, and while she won't acknowledge herself, there were a number of talented performers who were there, including one sitting to my right.
Was
So
that one of the
Congratulations
Catherines?
to Catherine, who was wonderful.
We almost
But-
went with Catherine Square.
But yes, compliments to Ethan Zundell, and who was the first place finisher that evening, but really to all of the students who had the chops to stand up there and perform in front of their peers, and did a great job. And
That
a
and
wide
the-
array of performances too.
With that and the improv show tomorrow night, it's exciting to see the kids involved in various outside of school activities and performance opportunities.
Included in your packet was an old legal memo that I dragged out regarding impact fees. Just to communicate to the board that impact fees can be used to defer interest on a bond, interest and principal payments on a bond. You have 169,000 and change roughly available right now in impact fees to be drawn down before 2021. So we had talked about that in a prior meeting, but we were asked for the legal uses. We submitted the second round of the state sort of STEM/robotics grant yesterday. We also found out that we received a grant for $6,500 from what's called the New Hampshire Fund to support a first robotics program at the junior senior high. So that team will be competing this year.
Great.
We'll be bringing that grant request to you for approval at a subsequent meeting. We just learned that today. The Newmarket Business Association Education Committee also met this morning, so we're working right now on what our title and logo design might be, and we're putting that out to students for some ideas. But again, that committee is working to sort of build connections between students and community business leaders to help students explore career options and ultimately work in the state of New Hampshire, we hope. Our infrastructure grant to the state for security-related upgrades was submitted last Thursday, November 8th. Our total submission is north of $500,000. If the state approves that, it likely would be funded as a state match of roughly 30%. But we, again, won't have a ruling on that until the infrastructure committee meets again. And they met today. I'm not sure if they have set a next date for a meeting. We have a pep band that will be beginning at the junior senior high, and those funds are coming from an advisor stipend for a group that hasn't met or been active in the last couple of years, the skate club. So we're excited to get that pep band off the ground. We have an early release coming up also on December 1st. At that elementary school, teachers will be working on curriculum, scope, and sequence. At the junior senior high, the focus will be around competency-based education, and we also have some special education-specific trainings occurring that day. I mentioned during the budget workshop that one of the things we look at this time of year are absences. So we've been looking at students who've missed 10 or more days of school and trying to take a close look at that and look at what interventions are in place for those students. Again, we know that missing large numbers of days of school can negatively impact student performance and long-range outcomes. So we are trying to make sure we get a good jump on that and work with those students and their families to get them at school as much as possible. Committees coming up, the Health Insurance Joint Study Committee was originally scheduled to meet just after Thanksgiving, but our health insurance group that was coming to speak with us that day is not available, so we'll be likely meeting sometime in early December. Late Start Committee met last night for their first meeting. They'll be coming back together. I forget the date, actually, but they expect to bring a report to the board with some, considerations in April. Our December 7th board meeting will focus on one-to-one technology. And I think, and the other thing I wanted to point out to you is that we got updated enrollment projections from NESDEC. And they, again, take a look at some of our local data to include housing, sales in the area, or building permits in the area, births, and they look at sort of trends of births versus matriculation to kindergarten in the community 5 years out from that. So we included that data in your packet as well.
Does that conclude your report, Meredith?
Indeed it does.
All right, moving along, we move on to school board committee reports. I will be meeting with the Professional Development Committee on Monday to review the items that Meredith just discussed in the half-day Professional Development Day. So I will report more fully after that meeting, after the day has been held. Anyone else have any other committee reports?
Thank you, Kim. Facilities is actually quite a bit that's happened recently and stuff coming up. We had a meeting with abutters last week from both the elementary and junior senior high school. Meredith, what was rough count, 20?
17.
17?
Not rough.
You got it exactly. That was a high turnout, I think, relative to maybe our other meetings, but all good stuff. Really got, it was probably an hour plus long, and we had the architect there. We had a representative from Ty and Bond Engineering to answer questions, and Meredith answered questions, and I think there was a lot of good feedback back and forth, and it was appreciated. So we're going to, continue that. We'll have a follow-up meeting as we, hone in on more things. So we had that. We had we have a meeting coming up here on the 29th, I believe it is, of November, to review progress since the last meeting on the current design development work. We also have that day, we have you may recall, I forget the name of the committee. Is it the Efficiency Committee or the Performance Contracting Committee, whatever the name of it is? It's a committee of town and school folks to look at potential advantages of performance contracting. We got 2 firms that are going to come in, and we're going to interview initially on that day before the building committee meeting. There's some potential, I think, there. At least Greg thinks so, for cross, uses for both the town and the school potentially. For example, and we don't know this yet. We'd have to get the audits back, but for lighting, both the town and the school have lighting needs, and there may be some economies of scale there if we, share our needs or share those contracts. Ultimately, if it makes sense for us economically. Other things as well, boilers, so we're at the very beginning stages of that, so we won't, know probably till in the spring if that's going to pan out and make any sense. I thought I'm missing something.
The planning board?
Planning board, RSA 674-54. You had to
It's actually not applicable, but as a courtesy, we went to the planning board.
Yeah. Well, we're supposed to go to the planning board, correct, and present them
Yes.
with our site plan review for non-binding comment. So that's what that was all about. And Al attended that 2 nights ago, I think it was.
In Meredith.
Yeah. And essentially that, I think it's a good process because it allows another set of eyes on our site plans to, if they notice something that, or, advisory, they'll let us know about it. They have, I think it's 30 days under the statute to issue us binding written comments on that, so. I don't know.
Actually, there were a
Yeah.
couple of really interesting points they did bring up relative to storage of the snow and where the water would be directed. And they were just public comments, and they were very much appreciated, and there were things we hadn't thought about, and it was a great meeting.
Good.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, as we have no discussion items, since we spent the time in the budget meeting, let's move to action items. The first action item is the approval of the minutes from the November 2nd, 2017 non-public and public meetings.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from November 2nd, 2017, both non and public meetings.
I'll second.
And a motion from Mr. Zink and a second from Ms. McKenney. Are there any amendments that need to be made to those minutes? Any discussion? Hearing none, I move to the vote to approve the minutes from November 2nd, non-public and public. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. The next thing is the manifests.
Make a motion to approve the payroll and AP manifests of 11/16/17. The total payroll manifest is $258,062. Accounts payable manifest is $93,072, for a total of $351,134.26.
I second that motion.
And I had a question on that. When is the new to us on the manifests are bond payments? When are they made?
On the same schedule as the other manifests, so twice a month.
Oh, so twice a month.
But
But
in
there's
this
n-
instance, we only had one or two, it's when the invoices are there, so generally we're only receiving them once a month.
Gotcha.
But they're available to be paid on the same cycle.
But we shouldn't expect to see a bond payable every time.
No, so there's a separate manifest for any expenses
Yep,
that go charged to that fund.
yep.
And then at some point in the general fund, we will pay the bond, and that will be in the general fund.
Okay.
But those are just the expenses that are being charged to the project.
For example, civil engineering
Yeah.
or the latest portion of the
architect.
architect fees.
So the total bond payable manifest is zero this month.
And there were no bills paid,
Gotcha.
nothing presented.
Thank you.
So I was gonna ask, yeah, I didn't think there was a,
On a motion on the floor from Mr. Zink with a second from Ms. Alberg to approve the manifest as listed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Manifest approved. The next thing we need to address is a traffic study, and this relates to the facilities building project. So Meredith, if you could give us a little detail about that, I would appreciate it.
Sure, so there's a memo in your packet from Facilities Director Marles. I won't read the whole thing into the minutes, but essentially, through our Department of Transportation permitting process for the bond projects, we were asked to do traffic studies at both of our sites. So those are to look at pedestrian and vehicle impact as well as changes to traffic flow. We posted on October 12th RFPs for that, went out through a public bid process. We received 2 bids for that process. Mr. Marles is recommending that we go with the bid from Beta Group in the amount of $12,900. That would be paid through that bond fund, as Mr. Zink just inquired about. And we'd like to award that so we can move forward with the traffic study.
Because that's a time-sensitive situation, correct? If I remember from the last
Well,
one.
we are scheduled to break ground in April, and the sooner we can get that traffic study information back to the Department of Transportation, the sooner they will rule on our permit.
I make a motion to approve the proposal cost submission of $12,900 for traffic study.
Second.
A motion from Mr. Zink, a second from Mr. Kinnison to approve the traffic study in the amount of $12,900. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of approving this contract award, say aye.
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 The next thing is the transportation extending contract. Lisa, if you would, can you speak to that? since you're here with us tonight.
So in your packet, there's a memo that I wrote to the superintendent regarding my recommendation to extend our bus transportation contract for 2 more years as previously negotiated in the prior contract. So the optional extension costs were presented in the contract, and I'm asking you to support the recommendation to extend the contract, and I put a few reasons in the memo there.
I make a motion to approve the transportation contract extension recommendation by our business administrator.
Second that motion.
On a motion from Mr. Zink and a second from Ms. Alberg, we would accept the recommendation to extend the transportation contract
And I should say with the vendor for a student.
with the vendor first student. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Unanimous. The next thing that we have on the agenda is some second readings of some policies that were reviewed last meeting for the first reading. Before we move to approve those, did anyone have any change that they saw needed to be made, or any feedback?
I did have a question, I don't know if it fits into this, but one of the things that a group of mothers and I were discussing, is there a way we could set up a fund for, that maybe we can put together so that people who don't pay, can't pay their food bills?
So we receive donations presently
Okay.
that go for exactly that purpose. If they're below the donation threshold, which they have been historically, we haven't brought them to the board for approval. They're deposited into a separate account. It's been reconciled at the end of the year to be applied to unpaid lunch balances. Certainly, that's something, that we would welcome. Again, if that amount is above $250, the board would have to approve that as a donation.
All right.
Is that something that would be worth putting in the newsletter, or is that something, I don't know if that's a diplomatic way of handling that, or, so that people know they can make that contribution?
I guess it becomes a little sensitive, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm looking for others to we get into subsidizing the
Right.
program. We have
Okay.
free and reduced, and perhaps that's the thing to promote, that we do have.
Free and reduced, right.
Program, a free program.
Right.
If you meet the needs, and
Right.
that people should step forward and apply.
And I would agree. I did find when I was teaching at an early intervention program that was part of the matter, was
And I think-
just advertising that free and reduced program so
Yeah.
people knew how to access it.
For us, it was more of a, oops, I forgot to pay my child's bill.
Mm.
And he went to get a lunch, and he couldn't get a lunch. And, if we had like a backup plan.
They have to.
Oh, I thought that didn't happen.
That's what our policy says. So if that's
Yeah.
happened, then that's news to us, and that's something we'll need to
Wait,
address.
They get a sun butter sandwich,
No.
correct?
They get the regular school lunch.
And the child, as I understand it, is not made aware.
It's not
Right.
noticed.
Right.
I think we talked about that
Yeah,
last
that
time.
policy changed, again, you
So
made
if somebody
changes
had
to that
issues with that-
procedure a few years ago. They should contact us if
Thank
that's
you.
a
All right, then we'll make that
concern.
clear. Okay.
And the principal has a fund to also, support.
Yeah, and to the extent that fund balances are unpaid at the end of the year, that has to be absorbed by the school district operating
Right.
budget. That fund's not allowed to operate in the negative, so that's cleared, and, we pursue debt collection in a discretionary way based on the individual circumstances.
If that happened, that's really disappointing, because I think we had a lengthy discussion about that at the last meeting, that the person at the cashier wouldn't even know whether they had, had.
Yeah, I would hope if it's isolated circumstance, I don't know. if
Right.
that's-
And I don't know this, I just know part of the story, I'm sure, so I will, if there's an issue, I'll have parents contact. That's how the conversation started. We said, oh, wonder if we had a fund for those moments.
And I know that was the practice a number of years ago, and the board changed its procedure, again, 2014, 2015, as I understand it, again, before my time, but.
Any other things about the policy, the three policies that are on the table for the second reading and approval? We're looking at the school lunch program, meal charges, high school graduation competencies, and public safety and violence prevention bullying policies.
None here.
None here.
All right, then I seek a motion to approve these.
So moved.
Second?
A motion from Mr. Kinnison, a second from Ms. McKinney to approve the three policies that I listed before. Any discussion? Hearing none, we move to vote. All those in favor of approving these policies as listed, say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Yes. And a couple other things. The next meeting for us will be Monday, the 7th, to go over the budget again, and we will get any questions that we might have pertaining to the budget to Meredith.
Monday the 20th.
What did I say?
Monday, the 20th at 7. I think
Said
you
Monday the
fast
7th.
forwarded.
Monday the 7th, yes, no, Monday the 20th. Thank you, Meredith. At 7th, we're not taking that, Monday the 20th, next Monday, that's my time thing.
I was saying dates
Dates
and
and
numbers
times,
just.
I've decided. But anyway, Monday the 20th at 7, we will meet to discuss the budget. If you have any questions from the board, please get them to Meredith before that so we can get the answers and have a discussion at that point and approve the budget, hopefully. And is there anything else budget, calendar-wise, since I can't keep my dates straight, that anyone's thinking of? All right, then we need to go, I seek a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A3 2E.
So moved.
And a motion from Mrs. McKinney and a second from Mr. Zink to go into non-public under RSA 91A-3 2E. We'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Zink?
Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Alberg?
Aye.
Mr. Kennison?
Aye.
Ms. McKinney?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton? Aye. We are in a non-public session. Thank you, Catherine.